I tell people that I expect them to lose some opportunities. If they're not losing opportunities, that means that they're not reaching high enough, but that it's really an effort to understand what happened in the opportunity so that we as a collective organization can learn from the buyer feedback or the customer feedback. And so it's really important to kind of have that collective learning atmosphere or culture at the organization and to communicate that out frequently to the organization.
This episode is about how we can expand or scale our CI program after setting it up. How does one measure the impact of a CI program and how do we communicate it? To dive deep into these topics, we have with us today Carolyn Klinger, Director of Market Intelligence at Affinity.co. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you so much. Great to be here today.
A brief intro about Carolyn. She is an experienced leader who has been leading competitive market and customer intelligence teams in B2B SaaS technology organizations, guiding development of market insights and recommendations to drive actionable insights and inform strategic and tactical decisions. She also oversees the creation of in depth, curated qualitative and quantitative content, including customer and market segmentation and analysis based on ongoing survey research, in depth customer and partner interviews, secondary research, and discussion with industry analysts. Not just that, influencing cross functional stakeholders at all levels of the organization, including product management, marketing, sales, support services, and R&D, is just one of her superpowers as a leader in this space. Super thrilled to have you. Welcome again, Carolyn.
Thank you so much, Janani. It's really great to be here.
All right, so we'll jump right in. You have been an intelligence professional for a long time, and our listeners would love to listen to stories from your career. So, starting with the first question, can we start with an example or two of how you have helped either set up CI programs from scratch or scaled CI programs or both, and how you went about them?
Yeah, great question. So I was hired at Affinity to start a win-loss program and to scale that program. When I first joined Affinity, I was told by one of the product leaders that Affinity had tried to set up a win-loss program twice in the past unsuccessfully, and they really needed some help in doing so. And so I came in as someone who had run win-loss programs in the past, not only in a corporate setting, but also in a consulting setting as well, and really knew what to do in terms of putting the program in place. The first thing that I did was I worked with an external third party, so a win-loss provider who really helped in terms of getting the systems in place. We put together interview guides, we put together target lists in terms of who we wanted to reach out to for feedback. And we importantly automated the process. And so what that meant was that we connected the win-loss program to our CRM system. And so as soon as a new opportunity was closed in the CRM, it was automatically pushed into the win-loss program. And that really helps in terms of scaling the program. So you can, of course, do win-loss programs, without an external third-party consultant. That's perfectly fine. It tends to be a little bit more manual in terms of, finding opportunities and identifying those that we can include in the program. By automating the process and mapping the CRM over to the win-loss provider, it really helps in terms of setting rules in place and having those opportunities default into the program. And so there's a lot of kind of back end work in terms of just setting up the program. But once you've got that automation in place, you really then start to communicate out to the organization some of the key findings and the benefits. One of the things that's really important for win-loss programs, especially for your selling organization, so that whether that's your sales team for net new business opportunities or your customer success organization for renewal opportunities, is to really communicate out that we are going to look at wins and losses, that it's not something that are going to be personally, holding people to account for in terms of those losses, but that it's really an effort to understand what happened in the opportunity so that we as an collective organization can learn from the buyer feedback or the customer feedback. And so it's really important to kind of have that collective learning atmosphere or culture at the organization and to communicate that out frequently to the organization. I tell people that I expect them to lose some opportunities. If they're not losing opportunities, that means that they're not reaching high enough, that they're not going out and pursuing enough. Um, but so that was one of the things that we did in terms of setting up the win-loss program, and then, of course, the ongoing reporting. What are the insights? What are we hearing from our buyers? That was really instrumental in terms of getting people excited about the program. About 8 months after we started win-loss, we then introduced a customer experience program, which I view as a sister program to win-loss, and so, it's really trying to get ahead of our renewals, if you will. So reaching out to our customers, our existing customers, and the way we've set it up is that 6 months before the renewal, we reach out to that primary contact in the account, and we ask them, "How is it going? Any issues with the product? Any issues with the account team, with technical support, anything at all?" And what we're really trying to do there is to give our CSMs the opportunity to address any issues well before the renewal and really to protect those renewals. And we can kind of talk about this maybe in some of the subsequent questions, but we were able to compare a lot of that feedback from existing customers and look at the tenure of the customers and compare that to net new buyer feedback from our win loss program. And that was really, really insightful in terms of looking at that information.
I love that. Yes, we should. We'll definitely dive a little deeper as we go. I love the fact that, of course, setting up a win-loss program is what it is. It's important, but I love the way you have a sister program in tandem, or having a segue. I mean, creating like a continuous process of getting your uh, insights from your to protect the renewals. I love that. Um, that actually leads me to the next question, where I know you've talked about how you set up the win-loss program and also the CX program. Uh, how have you used it to, deliver better impact? Like, how have you used the win-loss program to deliver a better impact on the competitive intel? And what's the process? What have been some of the processes you followed?
Yeah. So, in terms of the win loss program, we get a lot of really great, powerful information from that program. So, a lot of times, we can do a lot of competitive research where we're looking at maybe user reviews on G2 or Capterra, or we're looking at industry articles where maybe an industry analyst has written about a competitor and we're getting information that way. And that's all great. We certainly use that type of information as well. We look at all sorts of public information. What the win-loss program allows us to do, however, is to get the information from the voice of the buyer specifically, so from their standpoint, and it allows us to have what I really view as an edge in terms of that competitive intel, because this is information that's not out on the web. It's not widely disseminated. It's very unique, specific information. And by doing both a combination of online kind of surveys. We've done it for the win loss program. We've done online surveys, we've done phone interviews, and we've done kind of a combination of both, what we call flex interviews, where it's a non-real time interview and the person's actually speaking into a microphone in non-real time, but still giving us that really rich qualitative information. And by doing this kind of combination of different types of outreach, we can triangulate the information and see very quickly what the key trends are in terms of a competitive developments, competitive strategies, likely next moves, partnerships, technology advances, or not in some cases. And so it's gotten very, very helpful. It's become very, very helpful for us. We can also send our win-loss provider very targeted questions. So if a rep says, I had this opportunity. I won the opportunity, but there were some things in this opportunity that didn't really make sense to me. Maybe they had some specific questions about a key stakeholder or a decision that was made or whatever it may have been. We can feed those questions on an opportunity by opportunity basis to our win-loss consultant, and they can then ask the buyer directly. So that gives us the ability to kind of mass customize the profiles and get that information that's really truly helpful to our teams, both from a sales perspective, product marketing, product management. If they've got specific questions about product functionality or specific features, they can include some specific questions as well. So that's been really, really helpful. And we take that information that we're getting from the win loss program and we feed that directly into our battle cards. And so we have our battle cards in a kind of an online format, if you will, where we're using kind of a hybrid approach. So some of the battle card information is automatically scraped and pulled into the battle cards as the information comes in. So whether that's a competitor's press release, or social media postings, or industry articles, user reviews, all of that type of information that's automatically out on the web is scraped and put into the battle card. We also have the opportunity, though, kind of in a hybrid approach, to be able to not just have that scraped information, but take the information from our win loss program and put that into a very bespoke and curated section in the battle card as well. And so we can say, why Affinity wins based on buyer feedback, why Affinity loses based on buyer feedback. Here are some ways that you can counter, and kind of accommodate or um, kind of cross purpose, if you will, the why we lose. So here are some suggestions to counter that. And that's been really, really helpful to contextualize and provide that additional information into the battle cards, again, directly from the buyer feedback. The other thing that we've done is we've taken quotes directly from the win-loss program, and we include them in competitive side-by-side comparison documents. We anonymize the quotes, so we're certainly not identifying actual people or organizations, but we're including some specific quotes from buyers directly that we allow our customer-facing teams to use as they're coming up against specific competitors. So that's been really helpful as well, just in terms of arming the teams with that competitive information.
Thank you for that. That was illuminating. I love the way you have a semi-automatic process, if you may, where some of them get auto-populated and then you customize it. And then, of course, the anonymous quotes make a lot of difference. I think it's always good to hear from the buyers themselves. So, yeah, thank you for that. Um, I'm just building a little on, the CI program that you've done. Apart from the win-loss programs you've run, what are some of the ways in which you have measured, quantified, and communicated the impact of CI to your stakeholders? And also, I know you mentioned a few in some of the other, earlier answers, but who have been the different stakeholders you work with when communicating the impact of the CI that you've done?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we work very cross-functionally within the organization, and this is something I've done both at Affinity and previous organizations where I've worked as well. So we sit physically within the marketing organization, and we work very closely with our marketing colleagues, especially in product marketing. But we also other cross-functional stakeholders would be product management, sales, certainly the customer success team, including not just our customer success managers, but our technical support representatives and our onboarding team as well. We've also, since standing up win loss and customer experience, have stood up a post implementation program as well to get feedback on the onboarding process. We also work very closely with engineering to make sure that they're aware of how their work directly impacts users, so that they can hear the voice of the buyer directly in terms of the features, the functionality, and not just maybe hear it third hand from another party. And then other stakeholders would include maybe not as much as sales, CS, marketing, and so forth, but we also work with teams where we get buyer feedback that are not always in the customer light, if you will, but teams like legal, finance, HR, where they can do things in their roles that um, make the customer journey either more pleasant and a better experience, or less pleasant and a somewhat negative experience. So things like contracts and redlining, things that slow the process down for for a contract. When we get feedback about that, we definitely share it back with the legal team, to let them know that they're part of the customer journey as well. They're impacting the customer experience, and the buyer experience too. And then just in terms of some of the things that we use to measure the impact. So this would be things like influenced revenue. So just this year, for example, through our win-loss program, we've had close to $2 million in influenced revenue, and we measure that by looking at the battle cards. So we have analytics within our battle cards, and we can look at the timing in terms of when a rep or CSM looks at a battle card for competitive information and when that deal closes. And so if they've looked at a battle card within 2 weeks of the deal closing, we consider that influenced revenue. So we've been able to put a quantitative number there, close to $2 million, $1.9 million in influenced revenue that's helped the sales reps to close deals more successfully. So that's one way that we measure. Certainly win rates. Our win rates have doubled in the last year, so going from about 16% to 32%. That's something certainly that we measure and that we highlight. We're looking right now at compete rate. We've got one program that we're just gearing up on right now, um, where we're looking very specifically at a one targeted customer and looking at compete rate. And the difference between win rate and compete rate, win rate would be your overall wins versus losses, in different opportunities against different competitors. Compete rate is when you're looking just at those head-to-head opportunities. So if you take out things like the timing wasn't right, we lost the budget, somebody went out on maternity or paternity leave, the decision maker wasn't available, those aren't really reasons for winning or losing. Those are just kind of circumstantial, timing issues. But so compete rates looking specifically at we went head to head and we won or we lost, when it was a very close fight. So we're also looking at compete rate as well. And then we also have some analytics in terms of engagement levels. So we know, like within our battle cards, if someone is looking at the battle cards, how long they might be looking at them, what words and phrases they're using to search within the battle cards and to use some of the AI tools that we've got. So those are things that we're tracking very consistently as well. And then I guess finally, I would say we have a page on our intranet, our internal site, where we've got all of our competitive information, all of the research that we've done in support of the product team, the roadmap, and so forth. And we also look at the analytics for that, and those numbers are quite high as well. So feel really good about people using the information and really leveraging it to increase win rates and compete rates.
Wow, that was a super detailed answer, and I love all the measurements you put in place. And congratulations, you went from winning one in almost six odd deals to one in three, and that's almost doubling. That's actually doubling the win, right? So the wins that you have. So amazing work, and thank you for such a detailed answer. I'm sure all our listeners at this point would have taken a notepad and started taking notes. Also, love the way you got the differentiation between the win rate and the compete rate and how both of them are important. And I think uh, it's important that we measure what matters, and then especially from a CI program perspective, it really matters. But then you have to really convey the impact in the way it actually is. So yeah, thank a ton for this. Love this answer. Love all the different metrics that you put in place. Now, uh, I know you have given us some examples, but again, just we would love to listen, know more about the stories, right? So an example of two about the many ways in which you've used competitive insights.
Yeah. So, one of the things that was really interesting for us, about a year after we started our win loss program, and probably about 4 months or so after we started our customer experience program, we were starting to see very consistent information or feedback from our buyers and our customers in terms of some issues that they were expressing with product features and functionality. And we started seeing the trends pretty early on in the win loss program. And then again, when we brought the customer experience program on board, we started to see again very consistent trends with that, with very consistent feedback with those trends. One of the things that I did to kind of look at both of these programs and really shine a light on these underlying kind of underlying circumstances was to look at some of the KPIs that we were asking. So we were asking things like, how likely are you to recommend Affinity to a friend or a colleague? How likely are you to do business with us in the future? How much do you consider Affinity to be a trusted advisor? So things that are very kind of strategic in nature, and we're certainly looking for high scores here. One of the things that we noticed when we went back and we kind of pulled that information apart and looked at it by buyer tenure, so whether it was a net new buyer, somebody who had never used Affinity before, someone who had been with us maybe 1 or 2 years, someone who had been with us maybe 3 or 4 years, and then someone who had been with us for over 5 years. What we found in looking at that data, that segmented data, was that the longer someone had been a customer, the lower their KPIs. So and that included both wins and losses from our win-loss program. So what that was telling us was that, we had some work to do with our existing customers. We needed to find a way to, um, you know, do better in terms of processes, in terms of product functionality, in terms of, what we were delivering to our customers over time. Now, some might say, and I think this is a completely valid point, that as we have customers, they become more discerning, right? Their expectations increase. They do for all of us. So we expect more and more, and certain things become table stakes. And I think that's all true. But I think it's also a reminder that we have to constantly be innovating and focusing on technology, focusing on how to make sure that we're providing the best solution in the market. And so that was telling us that was a kind of a surprise to a lot of the leadership at Affinity at that time that that we needed to work harder in terms of some of that feature functionality, especially with those longer term customers who were really looking to us for greater innovation. So that I think is one thing. Um, the other thing that I think it really pointed to, the feedback really and consistently has shown us, is that our people are our biggest differentiator, our competitive differentiator. We s- consistently see feedback that our CSMs, are the glue that holds the account together, the glue that holds the customer to Affinity. They're solving problems. The AEs on the sales side are very responsive. They do a great job with demos. There are certainly outliers from time to time. People, the customer, the buyer might get frustrated with something. That happens. But by and large, what I've told the team at Affinity is that we really need to invest in people. A lot of times, I think that employee engagement and customer experience are two sides of the same coin. So when we see customers who are frustrated or buyers who are frustrated, we usually see that on the internal side as well. The employee's also frustrated. And so making a way to kind of smooth that path for both sides is helpful. You kind of get a two for one there in terms of making those improvements. And so whatever we can do to help our teams. One of the things that came back from the feedback very clearly was that we needed to become more of a trusted advisor. So instead of having a CSM, for example, spend a lot, hours and hours and hours creating reports, something that we could maybe offload to a more junior person, have that person instead focus on strategic types of conversations and trusted advisor. This is what we're seeing from our best customers. These are some of the best practices that we see in the industry. Customers who really excel do these 5 things. And so, one result of that finding and that feedback from our customers and our buyers was that we've now taken those kind of more mundane or routine tasks and offloaded them to another team, to really allow the CSMs to be that more strategic voice and strategic partner. So those are just a couple of things that have come through, but certainly something that we continue to watch and continue to report out on a regular basis.
Thank you for that. I think I mean, of course, all that you said was super insightful, but what really stuck for me was that you use the competitive intel. I mean, like you said, the customer experience and the employee experience are actually the same side, two sides of the same coin. So instead of, trying a band-aid solution, fix the employee side of things and automatically it impacts the customer side of things. So like taking that holistic view, I love that bit of your entire answer. So, okay, we have just one last question for you. I know you've shared a lot of examples of all that you've done, but is there any uh, particularly memorable instance that you've done around CI? So which is something like if I ask you, hey, what's something uh, I don't know, interesting, fun that you've done? That's something you would quote as an example.
Yeah, so I'm really excited, Janani, about a new campaign that we are just kicking off, and we'll kick it off in full gear in 2025, and that is a new campaign that we have dubbed a quote unquote swarm campaign. And the reason we called it a swarm campaign is that we are going to surround or swarm an AE or a customer success manager whenever they have an opportunity against this target competitor that we're going after. And we're really we've done a lot of research in terms of looking at our win rates, looking at our compete rates against a specific competitor. They're a relatively new competitor in our market, but they've been very disruptive for us. And so they're kind of giving us fits, if you will, a little bit. And we're looking for ways that we can overcome that and kind of fight back and fight for our customers, fight for new buyers. And so this is something that's very new to me. It might be new to other CI professionals as well, but it's the type of thing where I have been working very closely with other members of the marketing team to set up a specific marketing campaign and a broader campaign, but essentially, it's things like setting up a landing page, setting up a nurture campaign, setting up digital ads, putting together some very targeted slide decks in terms of positioning and messaging against a specific competitor, updating a comparison we have on our external website with very targeted information about this competitor. We've also changed some of the workflow for our AEs and our CSMs in our CRM. So it used to be that for on the sales side, for example, the AE did not have to identify a primary competitor until the very end of the sales cycle. So they basically would say, "Yeah, this was the primary competitor. We lost. Oh well, move on to the next opportunity." Well, if that's the workflow, we can't really surround them and give them support because the deal's over, it's closed. And so we moved that primary competitor requirement back to the validation stage. So at the validation stage, the rep has to say, this is the primary competitor. So we're doing reporting and dashboarding to basically look over the shoulders of the reps to say, oh, I see you're in an opportunity against target competitor. Let us help you. And so, in addition to all of the marketing support that we're providing, We've also got a cross-functional team that we've pulled together. So people from marketing, from product, from CS, from solutions engineering to do demos. Um, Very cross-functional enablement on the call on the team as well. But so essentially, whenever we see from reporting or we hear from a rep that they're in an opportunity against the target competitor, we're gonna kind of jump in, see what the situation is, see how we can best support them. So whether that's, specific demo, uh, technical demos that are provided, positioning and messaging, product feedback in terms of our roadmap from our product rep, things that have maybe worked well in the past for other AEs or CSMs, looking at creative pricing and discounting. So it's really an all-in, hands-on, surround sound, if you will, for this very targeted SORM campaign. And it's the type of thing I've asked, different people in my network if they've ever done this, if they have any kind of templates or, models that they've set up. And it's something I'm not really hearing about from a lot of my coworkers or my colleagues. And so I'm really excited to kick this off, see where it takes us, and then hopefully, if this is successful, we'll roll this out against other competitors in subsequent campaigns as well. So really, really excited about that for the new year.
Sounds super exciting. It's like a nice confluence of multiple functions coming together and then CI getting leveraged. Well, good luck with that. I would definitely love to know how it goes and obviously try and replicate it if and when I can. So,
Great.
with that, we come to the end of this mini series. Thanks a ton again, Carolyn. It was super fun, insightful, and illuminating to listen to you. Thanks a ton for your time again.
Thank you so much, Janani, and thanks to all of your guests as well.